Be not bitter. Vote with feet. Reiterate, life is sweet. The White Lantern Corpse draws its power from love of life, from reminding oneself of anything in life that is love-worthy. Poof, white energy, the balanced spectrum of emotional energy recharge. Do I have my little Hal Jordan here? Yeah, I do. Oh my God, amazing. I also dropped my Note 8, which I'm going to want to have in my hands. So it's basically an empty street here. So I can just retrieve my fallen companion. Good companion, the Note 8. Powerful energies in the Note 8. The phone that was not meant to be, the phone that should have not have been, by all accounts, the phone that a respected friend of mine said was a dead product line once the Note 7s, exploded in airplanes. But Samsung did a Hail Mary. Samsung flexed their muscle. Samsung decided to not be defeated and put out the Note 8. And as much as I love the Amiga computer and think it was the best technology device ever invented, Amiga 1000 in particular, I have to hand it to Samsung and the Note 8 because they pulled out all stops, and this is over 5 years later of me owning it, probably 6 or more years of it existing. And it is still my best, most reliable, durable, beautiful phone. Now it's in this case that makes it a little bit less attractive, but its design I've shown on previous videos. I won't bother right now because I'm on my way out to the Delaware River to throw the canoe on the river, throw the bike in the canoe, go from launch to landing, and then from landing to launch and pick up my car. One person canoe ride on this enormous, I got to get the foot length of it. It was one of the big ones. It's got its own stories too, which are in other videos, and some stories that have not even been told. So I've got a short ride to the river, and I'm going to try and pack a lot in concept-wise. I opened up with my own personal Green Lantern, White Lantern poem, and I have a correction to the Green Lantern one to make, and a point. A correction and a projection. Projection, Green Lantern, anyone? In brightest day, in dark, already a correction. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. So, two things. First, projection much, right? So, everyone accuses in others what they most fear in themselves. So the Green Lanterns are saying, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. And so if the principle of projection is there, that's saying that they are the evil that should not escape anyone else's sight. There are many in the DC universe who would agree with that. And let those who worship evil's might, so they themselves worship evil, and beware my power. I am wary of others' powers. So there's a lot of projection going on, and the fact that the Green Lantern's main power is that of energy projection should not be lost on people doing some sort of psychological analysis on all this. And so my own projection is in reciting this poem. I almost cannot help but say, fear my power instead of beware my power. But, they don't want to say fear my power, Green Lantern's light. That's for the Sinestro Corp to say. They're the yellow lanterns, and their power comes from fear as opposed to free will. And there you have it, a correction and a pointing out of a projection. There's so much deep channeling of truth in the Green Lantern myth, more than most things, more than, I would say, a lot of theological literature too. And it's too much for people. It goes over their head. It's why the Green Lantern movie wasn't that popular. So, on the last video, I talked about the nature of evil. So what of evil? What of evil? So the nature of evil can be pinpointed. It's when types of sentient life that should know better are adopting strategies and tactics of other forms of life that don't know better, but have evolved those behaviors because they're efficient behaviors. And I'm speaking most directly about ambush predation. I am the bush. Ambush. Oh, you don't see the bush. That bush is a predator. It jumps out of the bush. Ambush. Right? So already there's lots of wordplay there, which is deep channeling, convergent word evolution. But ambush predation is an extremely energy efficient way of getting a high protein meal, period. It's high energy efficient because you surprise, you sneak up on, you lull your usually also living, sentient, perhaps, meal into a false sense of security, with them going to a place where they think it's safe, like a watering hole, them doing something that they need to do, like getting water, and bam, you surge out of the water and you bite them, and then you go into a death roll, and your prey goes into a sort of shock to minimize the hurt and the pain. And that's life. That's life as a result of the evolutionary process, you see. And when the animal doing the ambush predation doesn't know better because it's all they can do, it's all they've been evolved to do, they are not evil, but they look evil. They look evil. How can you look at an alligator, or especially a crocodilian, any of the crocodiles, and go, that is not an evil look, right? Crocodile tears, right? They shed tears, but they're out to get you, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, the snake. How different can an animal be, but still be competing for similar resources for us, as us, for us? There's a slip. Sometimes for us, sometimes as us. There are certainly serpents large enough to consume human children. As there are birds large enough to swoop down and lift a human child off of the ground. How terrifying is that? From out of nowhere, your tribe is walking along, maybe following the herd, and your youngest one, who just learned to walk, who's toddling along, is gone. And you see it being flown off in the clutches of a giant rock. Ancient birds that were large enough to do this. The largest birds today are probably condors, and I don't think they do that kind of stuff, but certainly a large eagle or hawk could carry off, the young of other animals in a cinch, carry off full-grown versions. But human children are not off the menu, even today. So that's snakes and that's birds. Well, what else will get you? It's cats. Cats will get you. Sneak into where you're sleeping at night. Your watch person drifts off. Panther, black cat in the black of night. Gets your kids. Now, is the panther evil? A little bit more. A panther who sneaks into a tribe at night is a little bit more evil than the snake. Snake doesn't know better. Doesn't know your kid from anything else. The bird, the descendants of dinosaurs, maybe they know better. It's very difficult to say. Birds are birds of a different feather than mammals. Their path split off sufficiently long ago that they have, 6 fingers instead of 10, something like that. Is it 8 because they have 3 fingers and the claws? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. They're 8 fingered. So you can see they split off far enough ago so that they have a different number of digits. That's pretty badass as far as differentness goes. So it's hard to say whether they're evil or not. But they have that same slantiness in the eyes as venomous reptiles. And that's a clue. That's a hint. And you see that too in cats, the deadly cats. There's something about those eyes in an ambush predator. Why are the tops of eyes so flat-lined as opposed to the more oval eyes of a omnivore or a herbivore? Strange, right? Well, sufficiently consistent in evolution that you combine these three. There's some theories there. There is I believe they call it the snake-bird-cat theory, the snake-bird-cat theory, wherein our image of dragons, the idea of the dragon that exists in our head is a synthesis of the 3 things we fear most because they tend to carry off our children. How terrifying is that? Take a pot, blend in some giant snake, some giant bird, and some deadly cats. Blend them together, pour them out into a mold. What have you got? With the exception of that fire-breathing part of the myth, you got a dragon. No doubt. And Davy Jones, David Jones, a professor, is the one who put that theory together, or at least popularized it in a research paper. And, my guy lately, who I've been listening to a lot, Peter Jordan, has been talking about that cat-bird snake theory a lot. He's been popularizing it more. So David Jones brought it out to the scientific community. Some, things, articles that I read, and NPR, it brings it to our attention, National Public Radio. And then it's brought to the world attention because Jordan talks about it. Talk about vultures. I just passed the road killing some vultures. Wow, the wildlife around here. Who knows? Who knows if that's where our image of dragons came from? But certainly, it seems like a valid enough theory. And I think that these things are coded so deeply into us that it spontaneously reoccurs, right? Convergent evolution. There's always things coming together. A wolf is called a wolf because a dog makes a woof sound, right? This is convergent evolution. Wolf, wolf. No coincidence. And similarly, as a sci-fi reader, I would go as far as to say that most of the conspiracy theory nuts out there are just cases of more convergent evolution of theories. What we know to be science fiction in the sci-fi community, they think to be fact. I don't even know the words. I don't want to justify it by saying they think it's science fact. They think it's fact. QAnon is what I'm talking about. In particular, there's 2 lines of it. There's QAnon, which has its whole William Cooper and his wacko book on a pale horse, which is the evolution of something called the Cooper Papers. And I read the Cooper Papers in the 90s, in the early 90s. In my Amiga days, I read the Cooper Papers. It had subsequently been turned into this book on a pale horse. And the guy was so paranoid who wrote it that when the FBI or whoever came to his house for other reasons, he was so paranoid that he got killed as like misunderstanding results of that. So you're not talking about a balanced mental health person. And you're not even talking about someone like that. There's three things to talk about here. There's On a Pale Horse in the Cooper Papers, William Cooper. And then there's Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard and Dianetics and Battlefield Earth and all that kind of stuff, right? So he had his act together a little bit more than William Cooper. So at least L. Ron Hubbard stayed sane. He knew exactly what he was doing. He told his science fiction writers in confidence, hey, the real money's in religion, and then poof, Scientology. That's not this video. I'll do another video. The third one is David Icke. Is it David? I think it's David. David I-C-K-E. And the lizard people agenda, the reptilian agenda. So there's three things, but I'm going to bring it down to two because this is beyond the scope of Scientology. But there's On a Pale Horse and the QAnon and William Cooper and Aliens Among Us and the hybrids and the X-Files type conspiracy crap. And then there's David Icke and the lizard people living at the center of the earth. They might actually have been, Earthlings, right? The reptile people among us who are, the Queen of England and the Bush family and everyone who, portrays some reptilian traits and is in power. Oh, they're reptiles too. Honestly, it's convergent evolution of these theories, just the same way we think of dragons because they share so many of the traits of, deadly cats and deadly snakes and deadly birds. So naturally, dragons are going to be spontaneously re-emerging as a concept in different cultures as as myths are created, stories are told, whisper down the lane occurs. The story of telegraph, things change from generation to generation, and bam, you got tales of dragons. And then it's validated by finding dinosaur fossils. See, dragons are real. Ancient discoveries of even more ancient dinosaur fossils that show, hey, there are great lizard beasts, terrible lizards, and so the dragon myths must be real. And so Sally sells seashells by the seashore, validating the myths of dragons. So the Sallys of history selling those dragon fossils really lend credence to the myths that are really from giant snakes and giant birds and giant cats. So in the same way, it's easy to believe lizard people exist because when humans act evil, they are choosing to exercise the strategies and tactics of ambush predators while knowing better. It's just like a deadbeat dad not paying child support. Never missed a payment. Not one. There have been 2 times where I've been given leeway because of the great expenses of a move, but not without discussing it ahead of time. And another time, which is beyond the scope of this video, but I'm still trying to come to grips with it. But say I had the money and refused to pay and was more than just, say, a day late because urgent things needed to be discussed, which is not evil. That is, I might not have it next month. We need to discuss it this month. Oh, you're using leverage of child support. No. You gotta understand. For me to have it next month, we have to talk this month. Accusations of evil. Projection. Pure and simple. So what real evil is when you pretend to be doing one thing and you're actually doing another with the intention of attacking, and you lull the other person into a false sense of security. And there were other options, other more mammalian, human options that involve the types of things that mammals and humans do. Higher order communication. Keeping one's emotions under control. Even if your pituitary gland sends out the cortisol and triggers a cascading reaction of all the neurotransmitter chemicals, adrenaline, and the fight or flight response kicks in, fight or flight or freeze, what humans do is they tell themselves that this danger is not real. And the actions of their sympathetic nervous system that caused this chain reaction of neurotransmitters in this state of fight, flight, or freeze is instantly relaxed, brought down to a cool place as a result of the parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system. The anxiety chemicals start to wash out of your system. The cortisol production stops. And other more relaxing neurotransmitters like the serotonins kick in. And you realize you are safe. You are in a safe place, and you are discussing human matters with another human being. The barbarians are not at the gate. There is not an actual physical threat, and there's not, frankly, even an emotional threat going on if you can just keep yourself under control. Many people can't. This is why I talk about Dune a lot, because it opens up with one of the greatest scenes. The whole series is great, but by the time you're a chapter or two into the first book, you've already got the 80-20 rule. 80% of the benefit from the first 20% of the work you're willing to put in. Once you see the Gom Jabber test, I think they pronounce it Gom Jabbar, but come on, it's a needle they put at your neck. Ben Gesserit put a poison-tipped needle at your neck, and then they take a box that is technological, pain-inducing to your nerves in nature, and they let you know this is not going to actually do any physical damage. And they say, but if you pull your hand out, we're going to kill you and jab you with the Gom Jabber, it should be Jabber, and kill you. So there is a real danger, but the danger is not from the box. The danger is from us, who are not going to let you be a leader of humanity. If you fail this test, you must be human to lead humans. And so, there's some deer. I'm going to pull this off. This is where I live. We got to let these folks go by. There's no rush. Relax. See, no harm. This is what humans do. Humans observe. Humans go as slow as they need to. You do not need to rush. Oh, here's a good one. You're yelling. I'm not yelling. I'm raising my voice maybe to match your decibel level, but it's certainly not yelling. You're yelling! So, when people tell you you're yelling and you're just matching their voice level and they don't recognize their voice level as yelling and they think yours is, they're in this state. They're in this less than human state. They've allowed their reptilian natures to seize them. It might not even be reptile. There's all the layers to the brain. Your thumb is your spinal cord. At the tip of your thumb is the pituitary gland, which touches the hypothalamus. The next finger, it's probably your fish. It's a vertebrate animal, simple vertebrate animal, a fish, your inner fish. The next one after that is probably your amphibian. It came up onto land. It still needs water. It's dependent on the water still for birth and stuff. So water isn't out of the picture. And then after that is your reptile. Reptile is your ring finger. And then after reptile is primate. Is your primate. It's not even your human. Your human part is a tiny little bit that gets added at the end that bulges out, just a tiny little bit. And so these behaviors that happen are almost everything but primate. And you know what? If people who go into these panics, these fight or flight panics, work their way to primate, it still isn't a solved problem because they just got up to flinging poo. If they start flinging poo at you, well, you know they worked their way up to a primate level of response, but not their frontal lobe, not their neocortex. The neocortex is the part that tells you this is not life-threatening. You must get yourself under control. And when you don't, on the one hand, it's mental illness. Mental illness. Those are various groupings. I'm getting the language down how they talk about this, but it's a grouping of mental illnesses that contains things such as narcissist, bipolar personality, and it's a grouping of things that make it very hard for that person to function, but a lot of times they squeak by, borderline personality disorder, BPD. They're borderline functional. So long as you're functional, it's not a pathology. If you cannot cause harm to yourself and others, see, that's all you need to be able to do. Not harm yourself and others, and be able to make a living, there's nothing really wrong with you. Welcome to the United States of America. It takes all kinds. It's different strokes for different folks. So there. So I'm heading into Eschbach entrance here. Welcome back to Eschbach. Nice. It's been a half hour since I started this. I've been going slow and cautious, so it's really a 20-minute drive, but I got a canoe on the car. What am I going to do? Am I going to keep this shot going as I unload the canoe and let you see the weakness of the rails I made? We do not hide our weaknesses here at MIKELEV.IN. We reveal our weaknesses and our humanity. We accept our deeply flawed nature. We know we're projecting when we do project. We don't pretend like we are not projecting. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might bewarb my power. Green Lantern's light. Oh, this is nice, but I do believe there are going to be people on this beach, so I do have to be very careful in driving down here and unloading the canoe, but I do want to do it because it's insane to try and carry this canoe by hand down to the river when you can just unload it by the river. So there's another car there. I am not alone in this thinking, so that's good. He's just loading up his kayak. He's coming back. I am debarking. I need to get my boat language down. continuous shot it is. If I went this far and I got my little gizmos here, I might as well do it, right? I even know which side to load it from so that I don't accidentally hit the power. Let me do that here inside the car. I neither want to hit the hardware power button nor the software stop recording button. Double jeopardy. Oh, hair tie fell off. Oh, still recording. What a save. Maybe. Let's see if we can get that back over this. And then the other one back around the phone. I don't have the crisscrossy thing going. I showed you in other videos the most desirable way to do this, but if I can just get it at all, I will be happy. Yeah, there we go. All right, so phone is mounted. Car in park, emergency brakes on. We're checklisting. We are always checklisting. We are never not checklisting at some level, some subconscious level of our brain that never stops checklisting. So I see a pipe coming out of the ground here. Clip it onto the pipe. Move this back to point towards the car. Oh, talk about ambush predators, right? You're in the weeds. Now we'll test my theory. Make sure that's nice and level. Yeah, it's tilting a little, isn't it? Okay, I'll keep that as level as we can keep it. And we reverse what we did at the house. Take off our bungee cords first. Now this is to save our back. And I've actually had the theory that with lifting it down versus lifting it up, I'll just forego those racks. We don't need those racks. That's only for going up, and then we can get rid of the biggest downside, the biggest weakness of it, which is not really working well on going down because it hooks over the edge and risks pulling those off. So I'll show you not breaking your back unloading a canoe without those rails. Rails are up, no rails down. Now I'll be going against the hill, so I'll be pulling it towards me. I did that because I thought I was going to be using the rails, but you know, we adapt. Look how easy these cords are to come off. This is so much better than the ratchet lockdowns. Ratchet lockdowns, I would still be fiddling with the first thing, releasing the tension. And this one is already off. Now, cues are bad. Holding cues are bad. If I were to put this on the ground, I would need to pick it up again to put it in the car. Put it right in the car. And it's really stupid for me to go against gravity. You don't want to go against gravity. What am I thinking? Gentle with the camera. And we find something to clip it on this side. It's rocks. Rocks everywhere. We pile some rocks over the clip. So many river rocks. River rocks everywhere. They will help me out. And now, this is balanced by river rocks. Hopefully the wind doesn't push it over. But now we're going with gravity, and I don't have to worry quite so much about what I was worried about. And now this is the last part that's actually securing the canoe to the car. And so as soon as this one is released, there's the risk of this thing coming down, sliding towards me. So you think, and you go, well, just be ready to lift it down fast. Keep yourself centered. It's all about centering. It's all about centering. Always, it's about centering. Center of gravity. And look, I know that this antenna is here, but it's a durable Jeep antenna. I don't really have to worry. Strap right in the car. And in the same place as the other straps too. Even though I'm going through another door to get to it. Now I know all the straps are in the same place when I need them next. Center of gravity. The thing is not nearly as heavy as it looks. Voila, the unloading without the rails. No danger of a bad back. Now we get out the other things. I'll bring it a little closer. Let you see the loading of the bicycle. All right. Now we'll put the life jacket and the oars directly in here right away, where it won't be underneath the bike, and we'll assemble it. There's there's 3 holes here for the kayak paddle to make sure that you have it right for getting the right grip on the water. I think I'll start out with a center hole. If that's not what I need, I'll change it. I'll leave that out for now. Not like I'm gonna launch without it. But the life jacket I put in there so that I don't launch without it. I wanna put it on before I leave, but just in case. And of course we wanna have the sweater with us. I'm wearing blue, this is rare. It's usually red or green, but when you show your true self, when you show your true blue self, even when you're being black for the day, you know, blue, you project blue when you're your true blue, and you are a blue. Not everyone's blue. Next thing, as important as anything else, hydration. Do not go without water. In fact, when is a good time to hydrate? Now is a good time to hydrate. When you're in Vim and you're saving files, when is a good time to save? Now is a good time to save. It's always a good time to save. It's always a good time to hydrate. It's more important than anything else. It's more important than sunblock, insect repellent. You need to stay hydrated. And one Vinkfer folding electric bike. 750 watts to go from launch to landing. One person canoeing. No big deal. I will go park my car, and then I'll be right back and we'll launch. We'll keep it a continuous shoot. How about that? One of my doors is enclosed. Of course, the last one I checked. Here we are, ready to launch. These are such wonderful spots. See, I can see other groups. You know, there's so many cars here. They're not all canoeing. I see families way up there across the way from the island. There's an island up here, there's an island there, down there you'll be seeing. And so what people do is they come here and they park here at Eschbach, and then they walk some distance to one of the more private islands or beaches that exist up and down the way. It's a good family activity. Nice, you know, relatively clean Delaware water. It's very, very safe. There's those folks over there. It doesn't really get deep. The current doesn't really get strong. It's going to take at least 2 hours to get down from here to the next landing, which by electric bike is about a 5-minute ride. 5-minute ride by electric bike, and then maybe another 5 minutes by car to get back. So for a total of about 10 minutes, yeah, I give or take a little. It's going to take probably 15 minutes, and by the time whatever hustle bustle is done, 20 minutes tops. You come back a distance that took you 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, depending on how hard you're paddling, to get from launch to landing, Eschbach to, in this case, Bushkill. Not the same Bushkill as I showed you yesterday at 611. There's a lovely little town of Bushkill. But here it's a Bushkill launch, which is a boat launch, is a different Bushkill. Same Bushkill river, different area. So I guess I'll give you a view up here. Really nothing to it. This kind of canoe boating is just so much less of a hassle. It's less of a thing than one would think So I guess I want my phone within reach of me, so I'll clip that to this one here. And yeah, that's it. Haul it in for launch. Checklist. Anything I'm forgetting? Well, of course, there's something I'm forgetting. It doesn't go deep here, but you know, people have drowned and died in the Delaware. It's not common, but you don't want to take the risk, so you use your life jacket. Sort of a crisscross arrangement they have here. That's it. No biggie. Make sure the water's within reach. And make sure the phone charger, just in case I go low on charge, is in reach. And here we are now in the Delaware River, launching off. Grab my oar. Sometimes I take my shoes off at this point because your feet are going to get wet. So I'll do that. This is not pointed at me, is it? There. Take the shoes and socks off because, you know, feet are going to get wet. Another thing about the Delaware, you can go in it. It's fairly clean. Here's a mussel shell right there. There's a lot of wildlife, a lot of, you know, crustacean life. Clean water. Cleanish. Delaware Water Gap. State Park. Not a national park. I'm like all alone here on the river canoe-wise. There's a family back there some distance. But for the most part, I have this all to myself. I am on what might really be the back of the canoe. There's kind of a front and kind of a back I'm seeing. I mean, I knew that, but I took the more space challenge one. So yeah, I'll start out with something interesting, switching sides after I already kicked off. Give myself a little more room. Put my various things over there so that they're in reach. The shoes and everything. Change where the camera's mounted. Oh, will I? Will I change where the camera's mounted? Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll mount the camera on the bike. I will. I'll mount the camera on the bike. Now I will carefully step around. This is right in the line with body confidence. Really, the water is so shallow. Why step around when you can just step out into the water, move the canoe, and get back into the canoe. Easy peasy lemon breezy. The front becomes the back becomes the front. So I'll use my leverage right now to twirl the thing and step back in. Tighten the nut there a bit. And I'll do that when I get back home. It'll be fine for now. Okay. Canoeing on the Delaware. And my own ride back. Secure the camera on the bike a little bit better. maybe further back. Oh yeah, that's a good spot. That's a good spot. All right, I'm ready. Thank you, John Langdon, not Robert Langdon, the character from the Dan Brown books, Da Vinci Code. Have you heard of that little movie, Da Vinci Code? The main character, Robert Langdon, anthropologist, kind of a slightly more geeky Indiana Jones, goes on mystery adventures, solving riddles, language riddles. The individual who Robert Langdon was named after was my old college professor, John Langdon. John Langdon lived, maybe still lives, but last I talked to him, he was looking to sell his place. But let's say John Langdon lived on the Delaware River, in the Delaware Water Gap. While I was living in New York City, not in this area, I was interested in buying a canoe or a kayak. I had a place in the Catskills, a little colony, in a colony called, I just saw a fish jump out of the water, Spring Glen Woods, a New York co-op. So I didn't really own the bungalow, but I owned a share of a company that owned all the bungalows. And the bungalows that were assigned to me, you know, you buy them. It feels like you're buying the particular bungalow, co-op or not. It's like condominiums, right? But the co-op, the units I had were units 7 and 8. They were an attached unit. We had much more living space than most other people in the colony. And I used the money from my mom's passing. Stories there. It was about $50,000, and I bought both. And we, you know, lived there almost during the summers. At least we did at first. Towards the end, it was just me and the kid being there. But at one point along the way, we were interested in getting a boat, a canoe. There's lots of beautiful places. Wow, you should see these fish going by. There's these river fish. There's so much closer to the surface than I would have ever imagined. You can see their fins coming out. I don't know if it picks it up on the camera here. So I at some point I must have announced on Facebook that we're going to be going to buy a canoe. And my college professor, John Langdon, who I was in touch with, so you might have known of him in slightly more ways, because his role in one, and I say it a lot of times, so you know, if this is the first time you're tuning in, it's interesting information. If I've said it to you a zillion times before, sorry, but he makes reversible logos. He takes words and makes them so that they can be read upside down. And sometimes like they can be reflected in a mirror and still read correctly. And they're still beautiful, beautiful letter forms, beautiful word shapes and beautiful letter shapes. And so his biggest claim to fame is earth, air, fire, and water, the 4 elements. The 4 elements that played such a role as the brand of the Illuminati in Angels and Demons. Not as popular as the Da Vinci Code. Was it the Da Vinci Code? I get those 2 books confused. But that's what he's known for. He's known for a tattoo that everyone's gotten. And a brilliant, brilliant piece of artwork. So convincing, so unlikely so improbable that many people actually believe that this must have been the ancient brand of the Illuminati. How can just some artist have made this for a book? Well, the answer is because the artist is the guy who the main character was named after and who really is that talented, and that's who I bought this canoe from. When I announced I was interested in buying a canoe, he's like, I have a canoe. And, you know, he was through a similar circumstance, marriage on the rocks. The canoe was going to be a part of it. It played a different role in both our lives, whereas, you know, he got that, well, no, he got it early with the ideas and vision of doing this type of stuff. And, you know, I was got it with the ideas and the vision of doing this type of stuff as a family. You know, it's the whole, you know, dads doing the dad thing, a man manning up. And when you have a place in the Catskills, you got those beautiful wildlife preserves around. Bashkill. Is it Bashkill? Bashakill? Here it's Bushkill. There's Bushkill in the Delaware Water Gap, and there's Bashkill, a bird preserve in wonderful marshlands up there in the Catskills. So we wanted to canoe in Bashkill, and so I got the canoe, and I was able to get out there maybe once with the whole family, and then another time or two with just me and the kid, some of the neighbors from the colony, and then it piddled out. I was the only one interested. But I didn't get rid of the canoe. I'm still going to try to not get rid of the canoe. I'm moving back to Staten Island. How do you keep a canoe? So I was able to keep the canoe before because I lived in Staten Island and I still had the place in the Catskills for a while. So of course I kept the canoe in the Catskills. Now I'm not going to have anything like that, but I do have some temporary public storage. I'm paying $250 a month approximately. And I'm going to try and empty it out as quickly as I can. That's one of the expenses to get rid of. These fish are just like jumping out of the water almost. I've never seen it like that. Wow, maybe I'm here at just the right time, spawning time or something. So this will go into my public storage. It's a 10 by 15, which I got specifically to be long enough for this. So that answers something about the length of the canoe. This is just barely going to fit if I put it diagonal. So this is about, let's say, a 14-foot canoe. It's probably a 15 or a 16-foot canoe because this is only going to fit if I put it diagonally and tilt it, which I've been sort of planning on, you know, arranging that space to accommodate. Typically your canoe paddles are more like, you know, this, you've seen them, but you know, that requires like rings, or it requires two people, one doing one side and the other doing the other side, working in coordination, right? So that was the original idea, and those are the paddles that I actually had left at home. And you know, over time, as you learn more about boating and you realize, you know, sporting equipment. You see my sporting equipment? I don't even have that much respect for bug spray and sunblock, you know? The sun isn't that bright. I'm not paranoid about it. If it was a blazing sun, I would have been more into it. But certainly not like real sporting gear. So the idea of mixing and matching your oars with your boats is whatever works. There's no reason not to. Why wouldn't you? This is wonderful. This is beautiful. And it's going to, you know, I'll stop recording at some point along this. It's going to take me probably longer than the 2 hours to get down the river. And this is just, oh, deer, you see the wildlife, the deer. Maybe some stuff will be captured on the side here. Maybe you'll get lucky and you'll see the herons and the other the other bird wildlife. There's a bird flicking along right along the surface right there. These fish, though, are out of hand. You'll see maybe these trails in the water going behind me, but the fish are skimming along right at the surface with their fins visible coming out of the water. They must be feeding or something. I see one right over here as it comes into frame. Let me see if I turn the boat a little bit to make it more visible. Maybe see some of its ripple trails. Yeah, it's just one after another. Just keep your eyes peeled if you're interested. I'm fortunate in that this stretch, the most convenient stretch from launch to landing, is it's a pretty good one. I've seen better stretches of the river, some more scenery, interesting bridges that you go under, certainly more whitewater-esque. There's not going to be any real whitewater on the Delaware, like whitewater rafting, as you might imagine. No, this is a very tranquil river. I remember standing at Eschbach once. There were some tourists here, and it was about 3 ladies standing around, you know, clearly tourists with all the trappings, and one of them goes, "It ain't no Mississippi. I've never seen the Mississippi. I want to see the Mississippi." My natural inclination is to laugh and put it down. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I've read Huckleberry Finn. This is no Mississippi. There are no river boats. There's no hustle bustle of New Orleans of it going through. You know, it's not the mighty force. There's no mighty force here. It narrows down in a few places. I've lived on the Delaware at different places. Or was that the Potomac? Wow. When I lived in Virginia near Washington, D.C., there were some places where, see, the Delaware empties out there. It might have been the Delaware, but there's some places where it narrows down and there's a lot of rock cliffs and stuff, and you can see and feel the force of it there, the force of the moving water. It's a different thing, let me tell you. If this boat capsized and I was in this water, well, first of all, the boat won't sink because it's made of that styrofoam, like I told you. And second of all, even if I couldn't use the boat for a flotation device, you just gently use an easy stroke, like the side stroke, to get to the side of the river. The current isn't even going to work against you that much. You make the current work with you. You target a place, you do a gentle side stroke, maybe even a back stroke, and you're off to the side. So being able to swim is still important. Swimming is an important skill. But if you're comfortable in the water and you know a few easy low energy strokes, you know, you can handle pretty much anything. Side stroke is such a low energy stroke and uses only half your body, so, you know, as it does, that it's the lifesaver stroke. It's like the fireman's carry of swimming. So if you ever have to save someone, lifeguard style, you know, the side stroke, you put them in one arm, keep their head above the water, and you can still continue to do the side stroke and still swim. So why haven't you seen more of these videos? Me being on the river? It's because I just got the electric bike. And being a one car, one driver household such as I am, it's hard to coordinate what to do at the other side. So on the few occasions when we did do long river rides, it wasn't even with my boats. I rented boats so that they would drop us off at one location, and we'd have a nice long ride. We did that on our anniversary last year, and we saw a different part You know, you take advantage of those times to see a different part of the Delaware. And being with someone, you know, you're less inclined to shoot the video because, right, this is a solitary thing. But I did do one where you saw, where I was with a kid. That was fun day. I gotta help them in their mind. Even out here, they have the desire to stay connected to the digital electronic world. I guess I am in a way, but I'm doing it for journaling. I know I'm talking to an audience, but you're not gonna see this for hours at minimum. And I'm not even gonna necessarily look at the feedback. And as far as keeping myself occupied and entertaining my mind, I am not consuming. I'm not consuming media. I'm consuming nature. You hear the birds. You don't even have to row. You know the reason you row on the Delaware? To keep your boat straight. Ah, the Delaware. I can talk forever. Should I keep talking? Hour and 6 minutes. I've heard of the Delaware River. Washington crossed it, right? Yeah. We hate terrorism. Americans hate terrorism. We can justify going to war because they use terrorist acts, but we are above that. We use armies and death drones. We were outnumbered and outgunned. How's that song go in Hamilton? That's what they're talking about. Outgunned, outnumbered, outflanked, you know. Certainly outfinanced. Yet, we win the War of Independence. Oh, look at that bird. Oh, it's just a duck. It's a mallard. You're about to see a mallard fly by. How do we do it? How do a bunch of ragtag farmers with second-rate equipment, worn down, demoralized, starving, win against the well-funded, seemingly endless, backed up with hired militia, Brits sent over by King George? Well, the answer is, you know, humans are humans, and humans are going to have times where their defenses are lowered, times where you think you're safe, and where everyone has a common understanding that no fighting is going to occur. They lull, you have a time when you're lulled into a sense of security. This time was Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, when the British troops were camped out on the New Jersey side, I believe it is. And from the Pennsylvania side, good old Philadelphians, right? Philadelphians, it's always sunny in Philadelphia. Where does this attitude come from? What is the legacy of the badassness of Philadelphians? The fans that ruin a city in celebration, who light the city on fire in celebration of a Super Bowl victory. Who are these people? Well, they're the ones who, on Christmas Eve, with General Washington, crossed this very not deep river in Washington, crossing the Delaware. I'm looking down now. You want to see the bottom of the Delaware? That's the bottom of the Delaware. Want to see it on this side? Hear that? I'm in the middle. And there's an island constricting it, the river flow. So that's where it's where the water current is strongest. I can actually feel myself going a little faster than most places. Maybe that makes it a little more shallow in the middle because there's an island. But that's the river that Washington and his troops cross on Christmas Eve to where the British troops are all drunk out of their minds. And Washington and his ragtag set of starving farmers, cold too, because it's the winter, who, where did this occur? Washington Crossing. There's I guess a town named after it. You can go there and you can see the reenactment. I've done it growing up. My parents used to bring me to see Washington's Crossing. Kelly, Grace, I don't even know his name, but there was a actress who became royalty. Her name was Grace Kelly. And her brother was the actor, also an actor, who played George Washington in these reenactments of crossing the Delaware. So we would go and we would see him, and we would drink our hot apple cider, which was always a big deal to even buy. My folks, even though we lived like the rich folks in the rich part of the neighborhood of Lafayette Hill, oh, maybe you can see these fish. See, they're captured. That's what I'm seeing, the fins coming right out of the water as they swim right at the surface, up towards me, right up to the boat. It's amazing. Me and my kid explored this island. I'm not sure if you can see it. I'll turn it a little bit, but it's actually an island. We'll be seeing the tip of the island. Maybe I'll go in this direction a little bit so you can see the tip of the island, skirt it. And my kid and I basically circumnavigated. We landed the boat on the shore of this island, and then we walked all through the island and circumnavigated it, cut across in the middle, almost circumnavigated it. When we got back in the boat, I made sure that we came close to the tip of the island here. So even though we cut across, we took a shortcut. Beware your shortcuts in life. Taking shortcuts in life too often is going to cheat you out of those experiences in life that will take you past adult child. In the same cartoon I keep quoting with Bewarb is a character called Seuss, the handyman of the Mystery Shack, who works for Stan Lee, we learn later is Stanley Pines. And his handyman is this wonderful character named Seuss, who is a man-child. He's emotionally very much like a child, but is kind of grown up. And they even refer to him at one of the episodes as a man-child. I think it's Stanley who says that, which he really knows, because Stanley is very grown up and very mature, even though they play him off like he's not. He's one of the most mature characters in the whole series. Here's the tip of the island. Some interesting features. Trees, old trees growing up here. As the water level in the Delaware goes up and down, the coast of these islands gets very much redefined. So there's some places where there are submerged trees, which clearly are not always submerged trees. They're living trees, not these aren't living, but there are living trees that on occasion are in the water. Their whole root system is in the water. You can see along the side just that change in, it's got a pretty steep bank. It's not all beach. And sometimes the steepness of the bank reveals quite how high the water goes in here. It's hard to see how low the water goes, but it goes pretty low too. It seems to be a good time, though. Good time for the current. Oh, wind. Wind is always an issue. Wind. So you can be going with the current, but against the wind, and you're like, oh, you're going down the Delaware, you're going with the current. It's going to be super easy, right? Well, the truth is, if you're going with the current but against the wind, you still got to paddle. It's like your boat goes backwards, and it's all the harder to keep your boat straight as well, so it takes some serious work. Story time with Mike Levin. I should do more, or should I do more, I guess is the question. Do you like this? Should I keep going, my stories? So you know how I got the canoe, who I got it from, how, you know, he's a long tail celebrity already, very long tail, so niche that nobody knows who he is. And some of my identity is tied to not merely knowing such a character, but that person still being, even from afar, in my life. You know, I'm not out of touch with John Langdon. I will never be out of touch with John Langdon. He has a similar Alice in Wonderland, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, fixation, obsession, what have you, as I do. And he even wrote a book. I believe it was kickstarted or something. But it is one of the most referred to in music books ever in history. You know, I'm often quoting things that are quoting Alice. I am the walrus. I'd be hard pressed to, you know, do others, but certainly the Big Lebowski had one. I couldn't even tell you what it is, but I know that there was a big Alice reference song in the Big Lebowski. And I believe his book was an analysis of all the classic rock and roll era references to Alice's Adventure in Wonderland and its companion book, Through the Looking Glass, which were written by Lewis Carroll for, I believe it was his niece, during river rides, written and told stories that were told in river rides that Lewis Carroll went on with his niece, I believe. There's the Fisher people up there. We'll be passing them shortly. And it was later written down. The stories were so beloved that they were later written down into not cohesive. Abrupt, strange transitions, disjointed, you know, patchwork of a somehow still working story. How'd that get so popular? It's nonsense. Nonsense, I tell you. Does nonsense have value? Oh yeah. Nonsense I would put roughly into the same category as roughhousing. Does roughhousing have value? Well, yeah. It creates an anti-fragile personality. Anti-fragile. See, I almost object to having this on. I know my swimming abilities, and I know the river well enough to know that a life jacket is completely unnecessary. I'm doing it just to set a good example. I am abiding by the rules, which happen to be nonsense. Rules are often nonsense. But the rules often pander to the things that go wrong most of the time with the outliers who ruin it for everyone. Laws and rules mostly exist to address the problems that happen most of the time amongst the minority of people who ruin it for everyone. That's why laws exist. And so, one must look at the spirit of the law. Spirit of the law, that's for starters. The letter of the law, that's another thing. So those are two opposite extremes. What's the spirit of the law and what's the letter of the law? So if something had to be done by a certain time, but in all functional, for all intents and purposes, that time is arbitrary. If it was done a day later, it's no harm. If it's done a week later, it's no harm. And in fact, with, due dates on payments on things like your credit card, they have a grace period up to 10 days. You can do 10 days afterwards with no penalty in most cases. And we're approaching something which is as close to whitewater as it gets. It's still not much. This will be fun, right? Yeah, the river's doing something. You got some speed. All I gotta do is keep the point forward, right? I'm just keeping the boat straight. So the letter of the law says that your rent's due on the first of the month. The agreement allows for a grace period. And they call it a grace period. It's because people have grace. People have grace. There is goodwill. People have the will to do good. It's goodwill. That will is good. So people are offered grace to other people who have goodwill. Goodwill and grace. Grace and goodwill. Grace Kelly. Was it Will Kelly? I don't know. That would be too much if it was. Yeah, you'll see a nice family here. It looks like a dad with his daughters and a dog. Oh, how nice. Not the fishermen, I thought, but still. Another island. This is the kind of the zigzagging that the Delaware does at about this point, where things get really beautiful. It gets very like birds, like it's a bird preserve almost. You're gonna see all the fancier, more exotic birds along this stretch. So far we've seen ducks and I don't know whether they were robins or sparrows or whatever, but here you might see some of the long-legged ones. You would think storks, right? But I don't think we have storks around here. There's two long-legged ones we usually see. There's the short long-legged one, which is funny, you see walking along with its sharp little beak poking into the water all the time. And then you see the really tall long-legged ones, which I'm pretty sure are herons. I should enter my bird watching phase. Morty would approve. Rick maybe not so much. Hour and 23 minutes. Nice. I should have probably gone on airplane mode, but in case emergencies happen, I'm seeing the text messages come in. We do have 5G going down the Delaware because, I-80 and stuff isn't too far off. We're not far from the towers. Delaware Water Gap is still civilization. Another family, a family of canoers, a bunch of kayaks, a dog. I'm the only one who's been on the river, certainly no motorboats. Every once in a while you see something that's I don't know if it's the Coast Guard or something. There's the river police that every once in a great while they go buzzing by. I think it's been long enough that I'm just gonna put the battery on the phone. Preemptive battery strike. And don't even have much charge in this thing. I think it's only like 20%, but that's 20% charging that this phone will have that it otherwise would not have. So there we go. And see, I just stopped for a moment. See, look, if I just stop for a moment, you're gonna see me reverse direction. I might as well show you. The reason I'm rowing, I don't even need to row. But if you don't row, here's what happens. This other family is probably gonna be looking at me like, what are you doing? It's all fun and games until somebody slips and falls and hurts themselves. No truer words have ever been spoken. You get the point. I'll reverse around the rest of the way. I feel like a fool. Why do we do things for other people? And clearly I'm in deliberate control over this boat. For the appearance, I'm not. I don't want to look like a fool for some reason. How long will I do this video? Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll take you on the bike ride back to the car. Maybe it'll out the fact that it's longer than 20 minutes to get back fully. Maybe, I don't know. Felt like it under 20 minutes when I did it last time. And Bushkill, the landing there is it's a good landing. It's you know, well populated. Still plenty of wilderness to go out and pull the boat somewhere private so I don't have to lock it. I've looked at other approaches to having the bike in the canoe, but as you can see, there's no downside to having a bike in the canoe here. I'll unclip this for just a moment to show you. To remind you, you know, you just see me. What is really going on here? What's really going on here is this. I maybe don't have the most leg room in the world. I can put it out. I can think through that. If I don't want any cramped legs, you know, just a little bit of thinking out how things get positioned. That's perhaps a downside. But beside that, this thing isn't going to capsize or anything. All the standard stuff that the nattering nabobs are going to bring up, and there's always downsides. Life is not without risk. All life has risk. Do I get back to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland? I guess I do. You know, Alice takes such ridiculous risks. It's not meant to be a guidebook to life. Drink me, eat me. Okay, I'll drink you. Okay, I'll eat you. Not wise, Alice, not wise at all. And they all have body-altering effects. They shrink and grow, and they change your frame of reference. The way you relate to the world changes. You drink one thing, you get tiny, and, you know, things laugh at you for doing it. And then, you know, the predicament is revealed to you. Now that you're small, you don't have access to the key. The key is up on the table. But nothing's impossible. So, you know, you eat something and you grow big. You go through a keyhole, something floods, your tears become floods. You join a caucus race, and the dodo starts to teach you about social castes and how he can get everyone else to work and make everyone, you know, do whatever he says, and he doesn't have to be in the rate. You know, I could go on forever. The lessons, the little vignettes that get pieced together in Alice somehow must, right? Because it wouldn't be so famous if it didn't, hold together as a cohesive whole, as a work of art, as a book worth reading. And those who say no, I would offer them as evidence the popularity of the book. It's just like in the argument of optimists versus pessimists, with pessimists being wrong, as close to objectively wrong. There's not a lot of things that are objectively true in this world, but the fact that that pessimists are on the whole objectively wrong is the closest thing we have to objectivity in our existence. Because if they weren't wrong, then World War II would have become an atomic, war. Sometime after World War II. We didn't have as many bombs as we made out, but, ramping up to go in production. It could have been shortly thereafter, any of the wars that followed. The Bay of Pigs incident in particular, where John F. Kennedy, almost, had the launch done because we were keeping the Russians from putting missiles in Cuba, and we blockaded it, a boat that we knew held atomic bombs. And so that was brinksmanship. That was right to the edge. And there's been other times. That the public just doesn't know about. Things are only known when they have to be known, when there's no way to keep the public from knowing. It's the only reason we know that the atomic bomb was used during World War II. You think the public would have known of a secret weapon, of a super secret weapon? And we know for a fact that super secret weapons can be kept secret for on the order of 40 or 50 years. Yeah, watch the movie The Imitation Game. I forget the actor's name, Gilbert Humperdinck or something. The guy who plays Dr. Strange also played Alan Turing, the inventor of computers, right? Who invented computers? Oh, it was the ENIAC in the United States in the 60s, blah, 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 blah. No. ENIAC, UNIVAC, right? There's this whole American tradition of computers that we like to take credit for. But it was the Brits in the 40s, specifically Alan Turing. These were mechanical computers. You didn't even need electronics. Talk about the Da Vinci Code and, devices that click and whir and stuff. It was a clicking and whirring and cylinders spinning and, switches being thrown kind of device. So it was physically large, and there were multiple versions of it too. And there were plenty of people involved in the project. And it was pivotal in winning World War II. And Alan Turing didn't do it alone. How did they find the people to help him? Public lottery. Not just a pure lottery, but sort of a contest lottery. Solve these math puzzles in the newspapers. And you do that, the government needs you. Your country needs you for the war effort. It didn't matter if they were men or women. In fact, Alan Turing's right-hand man was a woman. Women are often the best mathematicians. The one who, which Apollo mission was it that almost went wrong? And it was a woman computer. What's a computer? A computer is a, usually woman working for NASA in the 60s and 70s, who could do calculations fast, tabulate in almost an accountant-like fashion. They were the computers. Automation replaced the human computers, and we called those machines, those automated machines, computers. This came after Alan Turing and the secret endeavor to crack the Germans' secret messages. So the Germans had this thing that looked like a typewriter, the Enigma machine. They had two versions of it too, just like there were two versions of the code-breaking computer that Alan Turing and his team made. There were two versions of the Enigma machine. And they used cylinders and various mechanical means to encode a message. Message goes in, and encoded message comes out. That message cannot be unencoded without the key. It's like a private public key system, just like we have today with electronics. And so once you had such an encoded message, you could broadcast it anywhere. You could put it in the newspaper, you could broadcast it over radio signals, and, you know, all the military instructions went out to all the, you know, German, you know, leaders. They could tune it in and find it in different ways and know where to be when, and what to do once they get there. They got their instructions through secret codes. If the Allied forces could just read these messages of the Germans, they could be there to intercept, and they could land the critical blows necessary to end the war with offenses, with taking the initiative, like the Normandy invasion. Right place, right time, devastating blow to the Axis powers, the axis of evil. What's evil? The Axis powers were evil. The Axis powers were evil because it doesn't take a brain surgeon to know that there's strength in diversity. More ideas from more people lets you think of things you haven't thought of before. See things in different perspectives. You can do kind of the equivalent of having the enemy on your side, because somewhere within your ranks is going to be someone similar enough to the enemy that they will help you think like the enemy. And if there's people amongst you who you're jealous of because they claim to go back to biblical times and the Bible is the greatest authority on the planet, so people who lend authenticity to an authority that supersedes your own, if that makes you jealous, you know, instead of killing them and trying to wipe them out with the final solution and make them an oddity that you can read about in a museum and see pictures of, see stuff made from them. Instead of that, evil through and through. They had other options. They could have embraced diversity. They go the other route that we call tyranny, we call fascism. But what it really is the opposite of diversity. It's the opposite of heterogeneous, different genuses, heterogeneous. Heterogeneous is strength, heterogeneous is power, heterogeneous is good. The closest thing we have to objective good. What is good and evil, right? It's all relative. What does a reptile know their ambush predation from good? They don't. So the concepts of good and evil start to come in at the mammal level of animal type. Creatures that, but there's outliers in reptiles, right? Some reptiles are good. Alligators and crocodiles are good. Right as they're doing their death roll to tear you to shreds, they're doing it so that they have food to be a good mommy and daddy to their little offspring, who the mommy takes care of after birth while alive, not letting them go out into the river proper, but keeping them isolated off in a safe, nursery until they're old enough. So there's always outliers. You can't put down all of reptiles. But when you got a mammal whose main way is having that social interaction and sensitivity necessary for survival, right? Humans need to do it. Some regressed mammals don't need to do it so much. The lone cats, not all cats, right? They call it a pride. They gather because they want to. Evolution makes it different for different types of cats, but some leopards, panthers, the things that was Bagheera in Jungle Book. Oh, don't get me started on Jungle Book. Those types of cats are mostly solitary for their entire lives. They get together with others of their type to breed. And then they're apart again. And they might get together, I believe, even with that same mate to breed again later. But for the most part, they're alone. And for the most part, they're ambush predators. That's a sun sneeze. So the question then, are things like Bagheera from the Jungle Book, are the panthers and the leopards and the pumas, there's American cats, they're similar. There's a whole bunch of American cats that go by similar names as these African cats. What we would know in the Americas as a bobcat actually has a bunch of other names that overlap. Puma, I think, is one of them. Jaguar might be one of them. Pumas and jaguars. But the African version, the ones that get you at night, are they evil? They are mammals. Mammals know better. Yeah, it's a blurred line. I don't have the answer for you there. But take a human and have that human go into another human village at night, steal their children during the night for food. Is it evil? Yeah. That's really very evil. They know better. They've been raised better, presumably. And still, knowingly, with precognition, with the use of that unique part that makes them human, they still make those evil decisions. That's evil. And am I projecting? Whenever someone says something about someone else, in accusation, even about the Germans, even about the Nazis, one must look at oneself. Really? Even in that case? Yeah, in all cases, whenever you say something that is not in the positive. Oh, these fish coming by. That way, the way those fins are flipping is just astounding. I hope you get a good close view. These might be coming over to my side. In a moment, I'm going to be still so that... Oh, it's going to the other side. No. Oh, they went down. Okay, so who knows what evil lurks within the heart of men? Only the shadow knows. Carl Jung calls it the shadow. We all have an inner shadow. All humans have an inner shadow. It is because we live on the vibrating edge between good and evil, between order and chaos, between carnivorous and herbivores. Here comes a motorboat. Sine wave. Oh, here it goes. Oh. Burning up dead things to go up the river. All energy, all free energy, all easily gotten energy is order being turned back into chaos. Order that was created by past life and deposited places where we can drill and dredge it up and burn it. There is nothing that burns in the traditional chemical sense that wasn't once alive. You know what burns? Diamonds burn. Have to go to a really high temperature, but you take a diamond, one of the world's hardest substances, and you heat it up sufficiently. You just put enough energy in so that you can start to get some energy out. Diamonds are carbon fuel, just like oil, just like trees. It's all carbon, right? So carbon is the vibrating edge element. Carbon has an equal number of stable valence electrons in its outer shell, occupied, and unoccupied valence electrons in its outer shell. So helium, hydrogen has one proton and sometimes one neutron, depending on the states of the helium, and that creates one outer shell. It's not the next level up. It's a quantized step to the next level up, which is, I believe, where carbon exists. So hydrogen, because of its one proton and one neutron, is also vibrating edge. It's what makes hydrogen so volatile. It burns easily. Hydrogen gas, that's because electrons are rushing in to occupy its outer shell in chemical bonds that make the hydrogen part of something else, because to have that outer electron occupied, it has to be brought to the picture by something, and you have things like H2O. The hydrogen burns with oxygen, 2 hydrogens to 1 oxygen, because oxygen has 2 outer electrons, I believe, to contribute. Hydrogen is missing 1, so they link together in that sort of V shape, and that V shape makes it magnetic, makes surface tension. This slaps. Instead of being super viscous, right? So what's the alternative to this? That's because of magnetism. When the journalist asks Richard Feynman, why do magnets seem so different from everything else in life? Richard Feynman looks at this guy like he's crazy and says, you're wrong. It's only different because so much of the polar regions within that magnet are similarly aligned that the effect that's normally at the microscopic scale is visible and able to be experienced at the macroscopic scale as humans. The reality is that magnetism is everywhere and everything. Everything about our physical world is because of magnetism or gravity, or things related to magnetism and gravity. There's 4 of them that we know of: the strong force, the weak force, the electromagnetic force, and gravity. Which one of these is not like the other? Well, it's gravity. Gravity is not like the other. So there's a lot of YouTube videos you'll see out there these days saying that gravity should not be considered one of the 4 fundamental forces of nature, because it's not a force. It's a side effect of the curvature of space-time. I don't know if I subscribe to that. Those videos are interesting, but, feels like a force to me. That in itself is lots of insight, the inability to let go of an idea. That is a dynamic personality thing. The people going, gravity might not be one of the 4 fundamental forces, might actually be more dynamic type personalities than those of us who just can't let go of the lessons we learned all our lives. Just because our, lower grade science teachers told us a thing doesn't mean that thing is true. Motorboat with the American flag waving. Nothing wrong against the American flag, but who you got on those boats. There's a certain type of person who loves to burn fuel. Loves to dig up. Oh, by the way, I was saying something about the nature of the fuel that gets dug up. People say it's dinosaurs that are cars and things like this thing about to run by me. Positive, like always positive. They like to say we're burning the dinosaurs. It's not the dinosaurs, it's the scale trees. Trees before they had branches and leaves like they do today, before they had the beautiful fractal shapes that they do today, were these telephone pole-like things. It's just stuck right up into the air, and then their branches came off at almost right angles. It was a much simpler design. And as such, they were They grew like grass. They grew fast. They grew everywhere. And the planet was covered by them everywhere they could grow. It was like an invasive species. Wherever there was soil in the ground and light above, the scaled trees grew. And then during one of the big die-offs, I'm not sure which one of the epics, all these scaled trees died. They fell over. They were, predisposed to falling over and accumulating up in thick mats of scale trees, dead scale trees. And that's what today's oil is. That's where petroleum comes. And again, I'm in the wake of that boat. It shouldn't bother me that much. These are lessons about life. How much this stuff bothers you is completely of a function of your mind. A function of your mind. Now, it's absolutely true. The wake of these boats come and affect my experience. They are having a physical impact on me. And it's easy to think that they're doing their thing because of the effect it has on me. But it is completely untrue. Well, partially untrue. Now, say someone's cursing at you in another language. You don't know what they're saying, and they look silly. Say they're waving their arms and cursing at you. And say the curses are of the most hateful kind. The kind which, if you heard what they were saying, they were right on point and hitting at your deepest insecurities. Because you don't speak the language and they're looking funny, you might even laugh. Ah, look at the funny foreigner. But if they were doing it in your language, it would have a different effect. Everything that matters is how you see it in your head. It's how you interpret it. Whether these, flag waving, scale tree burning, eat my wake, riding up streamers are trying to insult me or not is 100% for me to decide. What their intent is for me to decide. They don't know themselves that well. Who cares what their motivation is? I can say to myself, I understand them better than they know themselves, and I feel sorry for them. And I feel sorry that their mommies and daddies, taught them a certain way, and that their fun requires going against the current, that their fun requires energy infused in from places other than their own internal energies, that rather than exercise, as minimal as it might be, and coordination and subtlety and nuance that goes into keeping the boat straight, instead of all these things that make my heart sing about such an experience, they need to have their hand on the throttle. And I feel good about putting it that way, right? So projection, much. Yeah. You focus on the positive. You find the good things in life. And you keep yourself hydrated, even if it's Dasani, not really spring water. That's just from Coca-Cola. It's purified water, enhanced with minerals for a pure, fresh taste. Purified water. Magnesium sulfate, potassium chloride, salt, minerals added for taste, bottled by a member of the Coca-Cola Bottlers Association, Atlanta, Georgia. Produced under authority of the Coca-Cola Company, Atlanta, Georgia. Purified by reverse osmosis. For water quality and information, please call or visit dasani.com. Yeah. Spring water from some fancy schmancy town whose economy is getting a boost, or out of municipal tap. Doesn't matter. I'd probably rather give some economy a boost. Vote with your wallet. Be aware of these things.
don't beat yourself up. I happen to have Dasani water because of where I was at the time, but I was aware of it. I'm like, okay, I'm not helping some local economy. It's not Perrier. It didn't cost, you know, enough to make that a $5 bottle of Fuji water from the volcanoes of Hawaii, or melted from the glaciers. That's what I think about that. At least if it's municipal water and they're getting a good markup, all those employees, I mean, Coca-Cola, it's just like I talk about Microsoft. Microsoft, as much as I love to put them down and talk about them like they're a single thing or a single entity, it isn't true. It's thousands of people, and thousands of good people too. You know, you can't blame a country or a company for the faults of its leaders. If they follow blindly, you can. If half follow blindly and the other half fail to show up to vote, then you can blame them too. That's just like regression of a mammal. If enough generations go by that that's who they are and they can't help it, like leopards and jaguars and pumas or whatever, you know, then again, is it evil? It's really hard to call them evil because they've been that for so long. Their parents have been that. They've been that for generations. Their ancestors. Somewhere in the line of ancestors, someone was evil. And they created a line that had a trait that today we would call evil, especially among mammals. But they themselves, as a single instance of that class of beings, is not, it's very difficult to call them evil. Humans who are in the generation who have survived, we are the privileged ones. We are on the winning side of the winning side of the winning side. How many times down the cycle? Such that we've beat all the odds. We are highly improbable. Refer to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, and ooh, there's a beautiful eagle. It's a bald eagle flying over. Maybe you'll see the bald eagle. Hopefully, does that come on camera? I think I got it. Is the bald eagle evil? The evil eagle. Legal eagle. Like I was telling you, we're in the place with the more higher incidence of unusual birds. It's probably because of all the nesting areas that are possible and in the island-like land masses that are here. They're not really islands, but they're on the shore. They jut out into the water. Vibrating edge again, vibrating edge. Did I finish talking about vibrating edge? Carbon? Because half the valence electrons are occupied and half are not. It shares a very similar nature to hydrogen in that regard. Highly volatile. It likes to chemically interact. And the same thing that can become one of the world's hardest substances, carbon becoming diamond, when high levels of order are infused into it, usually not by life, but by natural conditions, volcanic conditions, geothermal conditions, geological conditions, create diamonds. Life processes of the earth, if you will. But you know what trees are made of? Air. You know what trees mostly are? Air. When you burn a tree in a beautiful evening campfire, how much ash is left over? As much as the volume of the size of the log? No. An infinitesimally smaller amount. Ooh, pictures. I wish I could take the picture without leaning in. An infinitesimally smaller amount of ash is left over than the log that was your beautiful evening campfire. Why? You think that the roots of the tree are bringing up minerals that become the fibrous interior of the tree, the barky exterior of the tree? You think that's coming up through the roots? Nah, water's coming up through the roots through a vacuum process. As the leaves evaporate water, it creates a negative pressure through the veins. I always use the wrong word. There's cellulose and cellulite. One is fat in the legs and the other is the fibrous material in trees. But they're like little straws. It's bundles of little straws that basically go between the leaves and the roots. And talk about forgetting words. I know these things in concept. Labels are so stupid. It should just be called the, tree water effect. From the evaporation off the surface, because see, the sun is shining down. The chlorophyll is doing the sort of piezoelectric quantum energy magic of creating, of getting energy, solar energy. These are solar panels, better than solar panels, more efficient. But another effect that's happening is the evaporation of water. And as the water evaporates, it's pulling water down from the ground up into the tree. And that's convection. Water evaporates, water gets pulled up, and it's constant circular convection that's doing. And in doing so, another thing that's being taken in is the air. Trees use carbon dioxide. We breathe out carbon dioxide. You often hear about the symbiotic relationship. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Trees need us, we need trees. No, we need trees. Trees don't need us. Trees can get their carbon dioxide from many sources, but the carbon of carbon dioxide is what trees are made of. They're made of carbon, just like diamonds. Trees are carbon from the air. Trees are made of air, carbon dioxide from the air. Trees are mostly air. Another thing, like Feynman's point about magnetism is all around us. Everything is magnetic. Well, trees are mostly air. You're only just a little bit the other materials that are brought up through the roots in a very minor part. It's what is left over in the ash. Potassium, some potassium. Potassium. The ash left over in pots. Potassium. Boy, you know what I would love? I would love to be a teacher. I may have missed my calling as being a teacher. I should look for opportunities to teach. This is an opportunity to teach. So I guess I'll just talk out to the world. I'm 2 hours and 3 minutes in. Glad I'm doing this video on my iPhone as opposed to the Android, because if I was on the Android, if I were on my Note 8, which is still in my pocket here, it would have cut off. It would have cut off twice. After the first hour, it would have cut off, and after the second hour, it would have cut off. Now, I wasn't able to do this in the car, but there is probably no such thing as too many times doing this. I wish I knew the 2010 Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey music. Dun, 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 dun. Look at this design. 6-year-old design. Perfect. Perfect in design, in conception and execution. This is Samsung doing its Hail Mary play to keep the note line from going away. Now, after they flex their muscle and see the fingerprint thing back there, perfectly positioned for unlocking the phone, right? Phone is unlocked, right? So, Apple can't copy it, right? So Apple is caught in this situation where the perfect implementation of a stylus, never needs to be charged. It's just the right size for your hand. It has the 4,096 levels of pressure sensitivity of a Wacom tablet on an already very, high resolution OLED screen. Black is true black. Before most other phones caught up, certainly iPhones were not OLED at this time. So it had the perfect low power, right? So OLED, when black is black, it's taking almost no power. So one of the amazing things is when you pull the pen out when the thing is off. Let me try, see if I can demonstrate that. You pull the pen out when the thing is off. You can start to write right here. I'm writing. You can write and take notes. And that is in full sunlight, ladies and gentlemen. In full sunlight, you can write. The power supply to the OLED screen only takes power on the whites. I say the power supply. The screen only takes power for white. So it takes very little power to maintain a black screen on an OLED screen. So much so that it's able to have a built-in app, part of the operating system, such that you take a pen out and you start jotting a note, and then you hit save, and it dashes it off, and you can start doing another. And in this way, a Note 8 is the ultimate note-taking artist notebook, long battery life phone in creation. So much better than the iPhone that when I'm up to the iPhone 12 and when iPhones in general are up to iPhone 13, I am still carrying around as my second phone a Samsung Android phone from 6 years ago. Its battery power is still pretty good too. It holds a charge. I mean, I don't use it nearly as much as my iPhone, I got to admit, right? So then why don't you use the Note 8 all the time? Well, apps are better on the iPhone. Quality is higher on the iPhone. Proprietary and profit incentive and controlled ecosystems works. Apple has some good stuff going. And as much as I bust on Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, the stuff he put in motion, the artistic process, the performance art that he performed is of great interest to me. Mikey likey Steve Jobs' performance art. And even though you have to pay to get in, and you have to keep paying to stay, and then you have to pay more for reasons you can't even understand, it's a great show. It's a wonderful show, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. Does this close my mind? No. It keeps my mind very open to what else is out there. If Steve Jobs can do this well, what can be done by the top phone manufacturer with the one key feature that I really want and need, the stylus, on a product line that almost died because they were exploding? Yeah, my open mind has led to me having two phones on me most of the time for all kinds of reasons. There's so many other benefits. All that whole multitasking, parallel processing thing, how much better the multitasking when it's a whole nother phone. Can you record conversations? Yeah, with one phone you can record the conversations of the other phone. Legal? Yeah. Two-party states. The states where it's legal to do it and, only one party knows, that's one option, or you just tell the person, right? So two ways to keep it legal. Daddy, two phones. I wish I was a teacher. I got so much to offer. This will be a day right here. The biggest part is opening the mind. The mind closes. The mind closes for various reasons. Mind closes because you think you know better. You think you know better because your people have told you things that seem to resonate with the sound of truth. They're consistent with what you're seeing and experiencing. But hey, perhaps what you're seeing and experiencing is being controlled tightly by the very people who are telling you these life principles, these things which may or may not be true. And so that your experience is automatically and perhaps unwarrantedly, without warrant, validating what you're being told in an unholy, self-validating feedback loop. Maybe that's the case. Maybe. Well, the evidence is always around you. It's always a matter of, well, then just open your eyes and look and make observations and believe things for reasons that you yourself piece together and articulate in your mind. Believe things not for the reasons that you're told these things by other people, but believe them because you have a theory. Be like Sid the Science Kid. I have a theory. My hypothesis is that if this, then that. Well, how can you test that, Sid? Sid the Science Kid. Good introductory music, too. I'm not even going to try. Well, Sid, the way a hypothesis becomes a theory is to design an experiment and to test it. To say, if that is the case, then here is the probable outcomes from a test. Well, how do you know it's an outcome from that test? Well, you need a control group. You need times where you do the same thing, but these other factors are not changed. They're kept constant or a control group. You need a control group. So you have defined an experiment. Let's carry out the experiment. Well, if my theory is correct, then things are likely to go down in the following way. We've had these experiences before, and we have not changed this one variable. This one variable has always and forever been consistent. It is a very consistent variable. It's like clockwork consistency, in fact. Better consistency and at a higher quality level than most people could ever expect in life. You know, almost the kind of consistency you would want for stability and security and the serotonin flowing and all the good things in life. Plus the dopamine adventures, you know, from time to time. So say you had the ideal situation and it became less than ideal, and that one variable was kept consistent and it was still okay. Now say you altered that one variable for even just a day, 2 days tops, see what happens. If, as your prediction states, things radically change, radically like they never have before, well, maybe it is a result of that one variable. Now, say that one variable is like your air that you breathe, changing, like cutting off your oxygen for a day, even just a day, is like really big, right? You would die within minutes. But say it was just the idea of air. Say it was a day difference in what in your mind is air, but in reality, it's just words, just imaginary things. It's like the person cursing at you in another language. Say all of a sudden, you could understand the language of that person. Say the experiment is that someone has been cursing at you for a long time, looking silly, and you thought they were a funny monkey in a tree or something, a foreigner or something. And then all of a sudden, some lens changes, just the way you look at things. The experiment is replacing one pair of eyeglasses with another pair of eyeglasses, and the other pair of eyeglasses can let you see that, in fact, it wasn't some foreign monkey, funny gibberish, but it was in fact another human being who had an absolute clear understanding of the entire setting, and they were criticizing you, feeling that you were being foolish and doing a poor job. And now suddenly you can hear that criticism and understand how much is at stake and the ramifications. But it's still just in your mind. It's technically no different than it was before. It's exactly the same as it was before. Your air was not cut off. But suddenly you feel like your air has been cut off. And you think that others will see that your air was cut off and see it exactly like you do. Well, that can be pretty big in someone's world. And that is exactly the hypothesis. That is exactly the theory. That such an event, which while within the bounds of proprietary behavior, to such a degree that it almost isn't a valid experiment, because you tell them that this is going to occur. You try and tell them that this is going to occur. But say the monkey is trying to tell you this is going to occur, but it still sounds like gibberish. You know, you don't understand it. You don't see the importance of the monkey going, what I need to communicate to you is that there's a waterfall up ahead. You're not just drifting down a river using the energy that you're burning from the source that you think is inexhaustible, but, you know, you're heading towards a waterfall and you're out of fuel. I'm trying to tell you. It's not my fault you can't speak my language. Oh, let's do an experiment. Let's let you speak my language. The monkey's message becomes clear. The monkey is not a monkey. The monkey is a very, very sentient human. One who has a lot to offer. And you didn't get the message. And now you go over the cliff. Oh, does it have to be that way? Do such experiments have to always end in the death of the subjects? Well, in modern times, thanks to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and not so much anymore. There's a lot of ways to preserve the life of what would otherwise have been sacrificed lab animals. Not completely. Not every protein folding simulation is going to accurately tell you the effect a certain chemical is going to have on a body. Inventing new drugs still requires the death of some animals, unfortunately. But that'll change as the simulations get better. There's a certain calculus to it. As the computers get faster, maybe quantum computing, as the machine learning algorithms get better, perhaps generalized artificial intelligence, the accuracy approaches infinite. It'll never completely catch up with the accuracy of the physical world, because there is no computer inside the physical world that can completely calculate the physical world, because it would then need a copy of itself inside of it. And you've got the nested computer problem. Any computer sufficiently powerful to calculate an entire universe cannot exist inside that universe. Duh. So, you know, there is no virtual reality that will replace our existence, though it could create another existence. An existence from within, an existence from the inside, would be completely legitimate, completely valid as existence. Sentience is sentience. If things evolve inside that virtual computer, there's nothing that makes it less legitimate of life of a universe and less legitimate of life forms therein than any other universe, any other level of nesting, any other depth in that hierarchical nesting of realities. They're all valid. And if the thing that is so special is that sentience, is that ability to transcend the seeming limits of the system by whatever means, by chaos or turbulence, all kinds of things come into the picture. You know, true quantum randomness, if there is such a thing, we don't know. That's one of the unanswered questions of math. Is the random that we have to use in quantum mechanics real random, or is there just something we don't understand? We don't know. And there's such big mysteries out there that remain. If we knew as much as we thought we knew, we would know what dark energy and dark matter is. We would know why spooky action at a distance and non-locality exists. We would understand the two slits experiment and why, you know, two slits keeps working on larger and larger things. Buckyballs, we're about to do viruses. Oh, the first other actual canoe. This might be one of the families I saw back there. They're in a cool, old school wooden canoe. The kind of thing Steve Overman would have built. Much more pretty than, and they're doing the two canoe things. They're doing the one person on each side, each doing a paddle, and trying to maximize the time you can see them. It's going to be tiny like ants. I'm not going to do zooming or invade their privacy excessively. I think you get the idea. Beautiful, beautiful image. That would be one of my lessons. Being in the canoe with the two separate paddles and doing it smoothly down the stretch between Eshbach and Bashkill. No? Bushkill. Bushkill, Bashkill. Bashkill, Bushkill. Poetry's a coming. Bushkill, Bashkill, Bashkill, Bushkill. One will kill your spirit. It gets better farther away than you are when near it. Ha 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 ha. Bashkill being the spirit crushing one, and Bushkill being the renewer of spirits. Although this is almost getting tarnished. It's all in the mind, right? And keep it positive. So try and find a way to keep the canoe, even when getting rid of the public storage. These are your challenges in life, Mike. Don't get rid of a physical matter that happens to actually feel like it matters to you. Keep some matter that matters, even when it's large. Can it be my couch? Can I bring this upstairs into the apartment? Hey, it's a 3-bedroom. Maybe I throw a cushion over top of this and it becomes furniture. I got a 3-bedroom. It's got a living room that's big enough. Canoe comes right up into there. Oh, to save the money, to be the final thing to let me close public storage soon, maybe I will look at how to get such a large, physically large canoe up that stairwell around that corner. I'll do the measurements and turn it into a couch, turn it into a fun thing to have in the apartment. Hey, we keep a canoe in our living room. In New York City? Really? You're kidding. No, really, it's a really big canoe. We used to go down the river all the time in it. We might also do it again. Symbols. Simple symbols. I'll go for broke on this video. I'll try and get to the landing. I doubt I'm going to have enough battery or storage for the bike ride back. One or the other is going to get used up. But I have just uploaded a video that's still on the camera, so I will delete that. And that'll probably give me enough storage for the bike ride back up to the landing. It's still only, I don't even know what time it is. I guess I can check on the Note 8, right? Daddy, 2 phones. It doesn't matter that that thing is going. Yeah, it's 11. It's 11:12 a.m. Let's call it 11:15. Quarter after? What's a quarter after? If you don't know what a quarter after is in time, then you haven't been taught right. You have to know what half past is, quarter after, quarter of. These are not really things from the past because they are proportions. They are fractions. There is a circle. When you divide a circle, the circle divides easily into quarters because it's one line across and one line across, perpendicular to that. Right there's the concept of pi. What is the length of that line versus the circumference of the circle. So there's interesting math concepts to talk about that are tied to physical reality. That's the best math. But math that is too abstract, math that is too digit-based, and particularly decimal digit-based, is soul-crushing. I don't like it much myself. It's stupid math, invented math, cerebral math. However, there are other maths which are of a profoundly more tied to our physical world reality. When something hits water, the waves that go out from that, it's a circle? Really? Is it a circle? What happens there? What happened there? And when you do this, I'll do one of those on the other side too. Now watch this. This is one of the most amazing things there is. It's getting me a little. When you do, oh, I gotta really capture it because there's whole careers dedicated to this. When you do this, that whirlpool. What's going on with that whirlpool there? What is that whirlpool? Why is there a whirlpool? Oh my God. How many things that you know of is that connected to? The way water goes down a drain? The way these epic mythical whirlpools exist in the ocean that swallow up boats? Does it really go in the opposite direction on the other side of the planet, or is that a myth? Is it linear in nature, or is it circular in nature? Why does a linear process result in something so circular? It's not really a linear process. There's a little bit of an arc to your arm there. It's not straight, certainly not perfectly straight. Oh, is there such a thing as perfectly straight? Is anything perfectly straight? Line, wolf, lie, line. There's almost no better convergent evolution of concepts than walking the line. I walk the line, right? Powerful, powerful channeling. Johnny Cash, I walk the line. The line, the narrow line that we feel we must walk in life is a narrow line indeed, and a lie. The narrow line we must walk in life is a lie. You'll see a duck coming over on this side, not the most exotic birds in the world. I don't know if that lived up to the promise, although I could have easily passed by such thing. Missed it. Maybe you see more details in the background than I see. I love this trip. It's just coming up on 2.5 hours. I'll be at the landing by that being 2 minutes and not 2 minutes, oh my God. Talk about time scale. Don't get me talking about Lou Lemming. The Polish sci-fi writer who wrote, non-biological life forms at a different scale that came to Earth, where, we talk about these days the paperclip effect with machine intelligence, that we're going to be nothing more than paperclips to tomorrow's AIs. But why AIs? We might, be nothing more than paperclips to just aliens of, maybe machine lineage. Is that AI? If we encountered aliens who were of machine descent, would you say, oh, you're an artificial intelligence? Your intelligence isn't real. It's man-made. Well, we don't have man where I come from. Art, the art prefix of that word, arty, art, artifact, is human-made. Human-made. We'll try and get the gender out. I wish man was just not a gender term. I wish man meant, human, all mankind. Language is terrible. Language is awful, and English language in particular has done a profound disservice to equality, egalitarianism. But, leave it to the Brits, right? It's all about creating castes that the various systems of life enforce, caste systems.
You're the aristocracy, you speak different, you use a different Queen's English, and these other populations are the lower class. They're the Cockneys.
And if you ever watch a British comedy called Keeping Up Appearances, you will see members of the lower class, the buckets, pretending to be members of the upper class, the aristocracy, the bouquets, with such pretense that gives you such insight into the shallowness of the types of people who abide by this. And they have a friend, I forget his name, I want to call him Oscar, but you know, Dick Bucket and his wife Hyacinth have friends. You know, the kinds of friends that people who want to feel better about themselves keep so that they can feel better about themselves. Oh, it might be Hyacinth's sister's family, so they have no choice. They would not associate with him if they could avoid it. But I think it's Hyacinth's sister and her brother-in-law are this, you know, working class, blue collar family who speak differently, who behave differently, who would say things like, a real lady, what? Because you don't have money, you don't have the education of the aristocracy, your ladies are not real? What's with that? Yeah, as much as I admire the British and their Celtic mysticism and their intelligence, their ability to find people to help win the war through power of mind, through lottery, to break the Enigma code, and to keep it secret for 50 years, how they did it, and to keep secret from the world that Alan Turing invented computers, so that to this day there's the falseness of University of Princeton University doing it first with the ENIAC. Go Americans, we invented it. Yeah, computers, the digital age. As much as I admire the British way of doing that kind of stuff, it has its downside. Everything has its downside. Everything is a two-edged sword. And the two-edged sword of the British way is the profound caste system that is built into their culture. That, you know, when they colonized, when it was the British Empire, and they colonized places like India, they're still suffering from it today. It's a double whammy. India already had something like a caste system, and then it was reinforced. You know, the British ways played right into it. So it gets so fortified that the divisions between the haves and the have-nots gets, you know, amplified in transgenerational ways. It'll all be fixed. Technology fixes it. Free energy fixes it. 3D printers fixes it. Equitable distribution could keep those fixes from occurring. So, you know, I got my own personal cog eye when what you do, it's not just what you do. A man is what a man does. Oh. No, it's what you're good at doing. This is one circle. What you're good at doing. What you like to do. You're good at doing, you like to do it. Those two things come together. Oh, that intersection is really good. I'm good at doing it. I like to do it. You can make money at it. Oh my goodness, it's these three circles. That must be the complete picture. Your cog eye is you're good at doing it, you like to do it, and you can make money at it. That in between there, you really made it, right? You've got the world as your oyster. Well, no, there is a fourth circle, the most important circle, because until then, you still might be greedy. You still might be a non-fully realized human being, lacking in empathy for others of your kind. You being a member of the have class, forgetting about all the have-nots who really would, would like the lifestyle improvement of like clean water that won't poison them. Not wondering where their next meal is coming from. Parents who are not abusive because they have so many stresses on them in their lives, they can't focus on being good parents to their children. They're worried about so many other things that they're bad parents. Yeah, no, until you realize that the fourth circle of Akagai is what the world needs. What the world needs. Tikkun Olam, the healing. It's Japanese, it's Jewish. You know, there's all kinds of cultures that have their take on this. And who's to say what the world needs? You know, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Bad golden rule, do unto others. That leads to crusades. You do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. If you're a heathen, it doesn't work out too good. If you're a gentle savage of the Americas, it doesn't work out too good. Yeah, the real golden rule is do not do unto others. Live and let live. Do not do unto others as you would not have them do unto you. As you would not have them do unto you. Everything else is fine. Do as you wish, but if doing as you wish somehow does unto others, you're stealing their land, you're stealing their natural resources, you're killing their people through indirect means. Manifest destiny, my ass. It's evil. It's evil. When Washington crossed this river to kill the Brits in their sleep while they were drunk on Christmas Eve, that was terrorism. He used the techniques of an ambush predator. He attacked where their prey thought they were safe, under rules and conditions that, you know, up until that point was safe. And because of a change in thinking, because of a willingness to cross a boundary that was not willing to be crossed before, to use outside the box thinking to do something for the first time, someone who is in a clearly losing position was able to win and change history and write history. So it was not terrorism. It was a heroic act. It was the liberation of the United States of America from British colonial rule under one George to another. Do you think they didn't know that? Do you think George Washington, the brilliant tactician that he was, and, you know, plantain owning business person and successful in many other ways in life, that really got recruited into soldiering, didn't know this about the situation and himself? Which King George? Well, you know, anyone who watched Hamilton, you should watch Hamilton, and then you should watch Hamilton again, and then you should watch Hamilton again, and then you should watch Hamilton again. There's only one King George, the one we beat. Yeah, we rewrote history. We crossed out, whited out, blacked out, whatever. And then we did a terrorist act and turned the course of the war, turned the course of the world. Made a power on this planet that could smack down fascism when it rose up. Oh, it was really the Brits, but we'll take credit. You know, we write history. They don't want it known that they invented computers and cracked the Enigma machine. So we take credit, we're grandstanding. We're, you know, technically not responsible for most of our accomplishments as Americans. Who's a Native American? Did the gentle savages create the atomic bomb? Did the gentle savages, you know, kick out the British colonists? So we're all from somewhere else. We're all foreigners. We were the diversity that was not wanted in the homeland. We're the outcasts and the bad boys on the spectrum of appropriateness and stiff upper lip and, you know, all that stuff that is, you know, following the rules. You got the British on one extreme. You got the Australians on the other extreme, although they enforce the law. You know, you start out as one thing and then you become the other thing in extreme, right? The Australian laws regarding all kinds of, you know, rules that are so relaxed in other countries are strict and draconian. But Botany Bay much, right? Australia was founded on a colony of criminals. The Botany Bay that most people know probably from Star Wars, Star Trek. It's Star Trek. It's the spaceship that Khan, you remember the Wrath of Khan? Khan's spaceship was the Botany Bay. It was a bunch of eugenics criminals, superhumans that were bred, and they could take over the world if they wanted to. And they tried, and they were found as criminals. They were put to sleep into cryogenic sleep. Now I'm paddling harder to get to the side before I'm past the canoe land. There's another canoe there, so I'm not trying to go too fast, but I need to right the boat to get on the front forward again. And so Australia was founded on a colony of criminals. And they were the bad boys. We're just talking about bad boys. I mean, we're tax dodgers, tax evaders, you know. Boston Tea Party and all that. So on the scale, you know, the Brits are the most prim and proper and law-abiding and, you know, buying into the social contract that is the protection racket, where the biggest bullies on the block are also your government. Pay taxes, your stipend, and everyone is serfs pretending to own property. Peasants and peons. And somewhere in the middle of that spectrum is Americans, the United States. You know, live free or die. Don't take away our guns. We're only as free as our ability to enforce our freedom. There's a bigger standing army, bigger armed population in Pennsylvania at the beginning of hunting season than anywhere else in the world. Right? It's America. And then there's Australia, which was truly born on criminals, not just tax dodgers, not just religious and social objectors, but on actual criminals. And they're at the other end of the spectrum. Oops. Oh, sorry. Let me correct this. I do not want to hit you. Sometimes the tide works with you, sometimes the tide works against you. But honestly, I can just step out and walk at this point. It's silly for me to try and paddle. I'll try and keep these folks out of frame. Let me tilt my camera away. You're going to see a little bit of the beautiful river.
How's it going?
Good, thanks. How about with you?
Can't complain on a day like today.
Yeah, right? Now, just to let you know, I am shooting my little YouTubes here, so your voice will be on camera, but not your faces. And feel free to talk. I really don't care. These are not highly edited things. It's kind of like life casting, so be yourselves. So in some scenarios, I would have a lock with me for this next phase. And I will be wrapping up, right? 2 hours and 45 minutes, just like I predicted, right? I'll unclip this and just give a little view of the area here, the landing. There's a motorboat landing as well, but there's this canoe landing spot here, and I'll let you see them for just a second because you can see the motorboats further back there, and I'll just keep going around. The two landings here at Bashkill allow the motorboats to go into the cement paveway, and the canoes come up here on the more natural landing. Now, I am just going to pull the boat in that far for now and wrap this thing up, because next video will cover pulling the bike out and going the rest of the way. Oh, poor dead fish. Anyway, everything is good. And this has been a wonderful experience. I'm glad to have you along with me. And I hope you got some value out of it. And, you know, I hope this helps set my mind in a very good place for continuing this activity. Once begun, it's in your blood, and should stay that way. It's going to require a little creative thinking, but I am a creative thinker, so not a problem. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon. And don't forget to subscribe and all that stuff.